This is Space Coast Business, spotlighting East Central Florida's business community. This week's guest is Ralph Perrone of Perrone Properties. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pearsall.
Welcome to the Space Coast Business Show. I'm your host, Jeff Pearsall, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening with you, sharing the best of Brevard County businesses and those practices that can help you also be successful. This evening, I've got a very special guest with us, and I'm reminded of a saying. Many of us have heard opportunity knocking at our door, but by the time we unlock the chain, push back the bolt, turn two locks, and shut off the burglar alarm, that opportunity was already gone. Well, our guest this evening has been opening doors. He's never been afraid about the locks. He's opened them up, and he's been successful because of that. Ralph Perrone, Sr. of Perrone Properties, based in Merritt Island. Ralph, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us this evening.
Thank you.
You know, I want to go back to actually when, if you were to define an entrepreneur, Ralph Perrone is it. And it actually goes all the way back to when you were 9 and you started mowing lawns, correct?
That's correct.
Now, tell me a little bit about what you remember of those days.
Well, after school, weekends, knocking on doors, asking people if I could mow their grass. I had a riding lawnmower and a trailer, and I put my little push mower in the back of the trailer and just rode around the neighborhood.
And this became a real business by the time you were 13?
13 years old, I started trimming trees, and when I was 15, I got my restricted driver's license, and my grandfather would sit next to me so it would be legal for me to drive around town. And after school again and on weekends and during the summer, I could go out, look at jobs, sell jobs, and I could do the work. And I worked for 3 other tree trimming companies in the summer as well, learning the trade. And I compiled what I learned from those 3 into my own little system.
And back in those days, now you were in Miami, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And you actually, if I understand the story correctly, had some of your high school teachers working for you during the summer.
That's correct. When I was a senior in high school, I had my wrestling coach work for me and my metal shop teacher working for me during the summer.
That's got to be quite a turn of events.
Well, fortunately, they were good workers.
Well, fortunately. How do you fire your school teacher, right?
That wouldn't be good. But when I was a senior, because of that, I was one of, actually the only and first kid in school to be on a work program. They only allowed 10 kids per school. I was the first one ever that was self-employed. And they made exceptions and had guidelines. I had to show them where I was putting money in a bank account. I had to do certain things, keep my grades up, but I only had to go to school 2 hours a day, and I was able to go out and work. And at that time, I had 3 or 4 employees full-time.
And so the other 9 were in the traditional work-study environment where you're actually out working at a CPA's office or a lawyer office, doctor office, whatever that may be.
We have a time card.
Yeah, and they actually granted self-employment as its own work-study. That's pretty interesting. That's quite a milestone.
It took some people to pull some strings to get it done, because of that, I couldn't let them down.
Ralph, probably a lot of people listening maybe are having a hard time understanding, but there was something in you that caused you to pursue that dream. How did that come about?
I don't know. I've always liked working. Of course, I enjoy making money.
Right.
That's always been a part of it. And I always had that desire to grow and be bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time I was 17, I had a dump truck, chipper, pickup truck, stump grinder, and we were well on our way. And I met my wife when we were 18 and got married, actually 19, got married when we were 20.
Right.
And we bought our first home. That lasted about 2 years. We needed a bigger place with a ranch. We bought 5 acres and had started our own nursery, which is a dream of mine, to have my own nursery.
And that nursery was a valuable asset in that early business, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It gave me the opportunity to come up with things. We called one rent-a-bed, where we were the 3rd largest grower of annuals in Miami, flowering plants. And because we grew them, we can install them and maintain them at a tremendous rate that my competition couldn't stop me or compete with me. They'd have to buy the plants for 65 cents. It cost me 9 cents to grow them. And we would go out to developers, condominium associations. We'd install the flowers. We'd come out once a week and maintain them, and you just paid us a monthly fee.
Right.
And there were no extra charges, and we were really successful. We were growing right around 500,000 flowers a year.
Wow. Now that's a substantial nursery to be operating in your backyard.
Yeah, we grew other things too. We had hedge material. We grew things for indoors as well. We had another program where if I landscaped your atriums in your condominium or office building and you allowed us to maintain it, we guaranteed your plants for life. If they died, we replaced them for free. Nobody could touch us.
Nobody could touch that at all.
No.
Now, you eventually sold that business, correct?
That's correct. I sold it when I was 28 years old.
And that was, as I've heard the story, a $1 million transaction. Is that correct?
Just over $1 million.
You made your first million at 28.
And I it's kind of a deal I couldn't turn down. They offered me 3 times what I was paying myself.
Right.
They offered me my choice of company vehicle every 2 years. But unfortunately, they felt they could do better with their own management and paid me 2.5 years salary not to come to work anymore and retired me. So kind of tough being retired at 28 because all your friends are working.
And that only lasted for 9 months, didn't it?
Yeah.
And you were back on the ground and running again with a new idea.
I started buying condos and townhouses and offices and warehouses and single-family homes.
And you were still in Miami at this time, correct?
Correct.
Now, looking back on that time, besides the concept of loving to work and the passion to grow, where did you learn? You went straight out of high school, and I know you're a big proponent of this, and that's the spirit of the entrepreneur. You lasted 3 days in college, didn't you?
Yep. I went to college, to the community college, to get my degree in horticulture. Okay. And everything the professor was saying was just going right over my head. I couldn't grasp any of it. And at the time, my business was doing so well. I was doing extremely well, and I had to drop out. And we hired a nursery manager. Actually, I had 7 different department heads running all the different aspects of our business.
So what do you think one of the key success units has been through that, particularly that first business, to get you to that first million? What do you think that success trait was? Well,
I think we never said no. The customer called up and they needed something done. We do it. We have our way to do it. I always felt that I needed to be better than my competition, and of course I think part of it is you have to make your customers happy. It's all about your customers being so happy they can't wait to tell their friends and or come back and do business with you again.
And you and Cindy and your family, 2 boys and a girl, correct?
Correct.
Decided to leave Miami. You came up to Brevard County. What caused you to come here?
Well, hopefully none of my Miami friends will hit me for this, but we came up to be around nicer people.
Right.
The timing was good. All 3 children would have been changing schools, Ralph, the oldest, going to college. But it was at the point where we just really wanted to be around nicer people. Right. And we moved up here. We moved to Merritt Island and bought a home there, which we...
Now, how many years ago was that?
That was, we moved up in 95.
95, okay.
Yep. And my business still, however, was in Miami. When I went back into work, I started buying the real estate, as I said, and we had about 82 properties in Miami that my wife and I were managing. And it just got to be too much to drive down there once a month and take care of business and come back. So we gradually started selling them and buying property up here.
Right.